All right, it's that time of week again where we look back in the final moments of the card. In this case, with Peni Parker, as you've got a few hours to pick up Peni Parker. I apologize for the delay on this. My school finals are kicking my butt, but you've got 16 hours roughly to pick up Penny. I'll give you my thoughts on the card, some decks that it could go in, and if you should spend your resources in the final hours. If you like these type of videos, I would appreciate you leaving a like on it. If you dislike this type of video, as rude as it sounds, leave a dislike or get in the comments. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what videos my subscribers would like to watch, so let me know by voting with your thumb up or thumb down. And then while we typically talk about the next card that's coming out in this video, Doom 2099, slightly to experiment with videos, but also because I'm really excited about that card, there's going to be another video that will get into more detail about Doom 2099 and if he will be worth your resources tomorrow when he comes out. Additionally, we'll talk about Sasquatch and Gladiator as you evaluate if they are worth the keys this week and those cards. So first, let's talk about Peni Parker. So Penny's text on reveal adds Spider to your hand. When this merges, you get +1 energy next turn, and then Spider merges with a card in this location, and then you can move that card next turn, which I actually needed to remember multiple times. There are multiple times that I messed it up thinking that I could move that card whenever I wanted to that it merged with, but it's only next turn specifically, so keep that in mind. But Peni Parker has been an interesting card, and I would not say is a card that's worth building around. However, it's a good card if it makes sense in what you're doing, if that makes sense. I think Peni Parker is actually going to age quite well and be more versatile as time goes on. I could see Penny, not in all cases and by no means in the best way, becoming a pretty staple 2-drop that if you're looking for a card to add to your deck, Penny could make sense to add. I mean, merging with a card, adding power, and being able to move are worthwhile things to do. Even if you just merge with Penny herself to get that extra energy, it's also beneficial even if you're not in a ramp-specific deck. It's, a worthwhile option to consider. In a similar vein, nowhere near the extent that Jeff or Kate Bishop Hawkeye are, my go-to 2-drops that if I'm looking, I'm one card short of a deck or in the beginning process of building a deck, I could see Penny working in that regard as well. Again, not in every situation, but in some situations, Penny is pretty versatile, and the Spider that Penny adds is also versatile in what it adds to your card. So what decks have I been playing Penny in? Is I actually did pull for Penny this week. I went for all three cards that I did not have. And I've actually been enjoying all three of them. I was planning on skipping this week, but somebody in the comments asked me to make a Penny video, which I'm still working on. I apologize. Finals have been taking my time. But and then I decided to go for the others because I wanted those cards. And all three of them, spoilers, I've really enjoyed. But let's talk about Penny first and the decks that have been working really well. I'm missing one card, but Penny, in my experimenting, worked phenomenally well in a merge, move, bounce style deck. So think cards like Dagger, Vulture, Multiple Man, Human Torch, goodness, and then bouncing those cards, right? Move, bounce is kind of a new deck that's out there that's really, really fun. However, I'm missing 2 cards, Aranya and Madam Web. You don't need both of those to make a move, bounce deck, but not having either one makes it quite hard, and I was always just short of what I needed to make the deck work. If I had one of those, I imagined that it would work phenomenally well. I was always just that little bit short. Where I found Penny to be a ton of fun, surprising this, and also another video I'm working on, is in a Cerebro deck, a C3 deck of all things. One, because Peni Parker is 3 power and a 2/3 is nothing to sneeze at in a C3 deck, but also being able to merge with Cerebro or Mystique to give them 3 power if you don't have something like Valkyrie is awesome. In addition, there are some, you can see all 4 of these yellow card backs are Cerebro decks that are a ton of fun that I was having fun with this week. And there are some situations, is it this one? No. This one where I had a Cosmo to protect my Cerebro from a rogue or from an enchantress or something, and obviously I can't Mystique that in that same location as Cosmo. There was another version of this deck I was running. I had like 6 Cerebro decks at one point. So what I would do is I would have Cerebro in the location of Cosmo, and then I would Mystique in another location, merge Spider with Mystique, and then move Mystique to the Cosmo location to keep both Cerebro and Mystique safe from an enchantress or a rogue or something like that, which actually worked phenomenally well, believe it or not, and was a lot of fun. Obviously, there's a lot of place for Penny outside of a C3 deck, but it actually ended up making a lot of sense. Some other decks, like I mentioned, was a move deck And then also just a good merger deck. Again, I don't have it up here. I should have kept the decks. I've been messing around with so many different ones. But a merger style deck, so think cards like Agony, Hulkbuster. Think of a typical Namora deck, so things like Scarlet Spider. Fantastic deck to play him. Peni Parker in as a Scarlet Spider Namora style deck. Or merging with something like Captain Marvel. Right? Those situations where you want to get it down into one card, that type of thing. You could also work it in a Surfer deck. It probably doesn't make a lot of sense. And then it also worked well in a Kitty Bounce deck, in kind of an Elsa Bloodstone deck, right? Just gave you an option to move cards, which is always phenomenal in that particular deck. And then also, giving you one more card to merge with Kitty if needs be, were the places that I found it. So I will put some decks together, and I'll have them in the description so you can just copy the deck code if you would like. One other thing that I forgot to mention about Peni, but I remembered right before I was about to edit, and this is not exclusive to Peni, you could do this with Hulkbuster as well, but Spider is a fantastic way if specifically a C3 deck is where I was doing this. If I wanted to Mystique an ongoing card, but I had played that ongoing card earlier. So as an example, I played Cerebro on turn 2, but did not draw Mystique for turn 3. So later on turn 4 or 5 or something, I want, usually turn 6 actually with, energy cost-wise, but I want to be able to Mystique the Cerebro. If Cerebro's in a location by itself, I can confidently play Spider in that location that will merge with Cerebro and then play Mystique, and Mystique will copy Cerebro. Obviously, that works with any ongoing card, and you don't need Peni Parker to do that. Hulkbuster can do the same thing. However, if you're playing C3 or any other one of these decks with an ongoing card, fantastic way to copy it with Mystique if needs be, while also adding power to your ongoing card, which is always fantastic, especially for something like an Iron Man. Anyway, back to whatever else I was saying. So final verdict on Peni. Sorry, I was all over the place and didn't have a lot of the decks pulled up, but final verdict on Peni is that she is a good card that I don't think is worth the gamble, but if you've got enough keys and you want the other 3 cards, or you're somewhat interested in the other 3 cards, she is a good card. She's not a card that I think you should go gamble if you don't have. It's not a must get. It's not even one that I would even recommend you go get. But if it's a card that you kind of imagine you've got a deck or a play style that Peni would work in, and you've got the resources, by all means, it's a good card. However, a month from now, if you are someone who's tight on resources and you're saving for something even more impactful like Doom 2099, or maybe Bruce Banner, or some of the cards coming out in January that are going to be pretty amazing, it's completely understandable. I think as you spend your resources on that card, you're not going to look back and be like, man, I really wish I had Peni Parker, because she's not breaking any decks and is definitely not a card that you're going to build around or say, man, this deck is incomplete without Peni. However, if you've got Peni, there's places that she fits pretty well. Let's talk about the other 2 cards, Gladiator and Sasquatch. So first, Gladiator. Obviously, Gladiator, you take a card from their deck, and if you have greater power than it, destroy, which is pretty great with a 3/8, and then you can do a lot of things like you can use Forge or Galacta to get that higher than a 3/8. Pretty cool with Galacta. He becomes a 10 power card, a little scar cheat, that type of thing. And it was really fun to play. I hate when people play Gladiator. Actually, Gladiator is not a card that I hate, but it's frustrating when people play against me, so I feel bad playing it against other people to turn that back on them. But a fun card. Obviously, it does what it does pretty well. It's pretty straightforward, works really well in a mill style deck, in a destroy them type of deck with Fenris, which was actually, if I remember right, Alex's number 1 deck of the week was a mill style deck. It was probably similar to this. I'd have to go back and look, but this is a deck that I came up with because someone played it against me and just smoked me with it. Obviously, I didn't see all 12 cards, so a lot of them I'm filling in the gaps with what I assume was in the deck, but I played a few rounds with this, and it was vicious and worked phenomenally well. Especially if you have priority on turn 6 and you play Negasonic into a location that they're trying to contest, that they think they might be able to win back, and you just ruin their plans with Negasonic, which happened in the game that this person wrecked me with. So they're really a fun deck. If you got Gladiator, give this one a try. It worked pretty well and stole quite a few games and a lot of cubes. Got people to retreat as well. So Gladiator, again, a card that I'm really enjoying, but I don't like... I'm glad that I've got him, and he was a card that I had enough resources, like, yeah, why not? And I also wanted to build this deck that someone destroyed me with. But, outside of this niche thing, Gladiator is probably not a card that I personally am going to play a lot. However, mill decks have a really strong place in the meta constantly, especially right now, and so Gladiator is a pretty good card for that reason. Like, he's Gladiator. He's a good card, but again, not a must-buy card. And then lastly, Sasquatch, pretty simple, costs 1 less for each card you play this turn. And I think Sasquatch is an incredibly underrated card that I was telling people. I feel bad for what I said earlier in my keys planning video, that Sasquatch was a card you could skip on because it was going down to Series 4 and it wasn't worthwhile. My goodness, this card is versatile. Throw this in your Airshim deck if you've got it. Throw it in a bounce deck, which is what I've been playing, in an exclusively almost all 1 costs and bounce cards and Sasquatch, and it's phenomenal. The amount of times that I get Sasquatch to 0 or to 1 cost is super versatile, and it's not the typical type of thing that people expect to come down in a bounce deck. Obviously, Gore is something that you could include here. You could get a little less greedy, and I could take out Iceman as an example, or America Chavez, and put in Gore as well, and then I'd be able to play Sasquatch and Gore, whatever. But like, this is the particular deck that I wanted, and Sasquatch was a ton of fun in this deck, and this deck is really fun. I just love bounce, but Sasquatch is actually surprisingly good addition to bounce. However, if you're tight on resources and you've already got Gore, Sasquatch is like, go with Gore. Gore's fantastic in bounce. He's really versatile card. Again, if you're tight on resources and you don't play bounce, I don't think Sasquatch necessarily makes sense. Like, this isn't a card that... Sasquatch is a card that can be easily replaced with other cards. However, if you have Sasquatch, it's a good card to include in decks, if that makes sense. So again, not one that I'd recommend you go get. However, if you get Sasquatch or you have Sasquatch, there's good ways to use it. If you do get Sasquatch, or you're wanting to get Sasquatch, another good deck that is really, really good that's been working in is just a straightforward Surtur deck. I can't remember what other 10 cost I had here initially, or 10 power, but Sasquatch is just a lot better, because there's a lot of times that Sasquatch is discounted to 4 costs, and I would rather play Sasquatch than Typhoid Mary. So, fantastic card to include in this deck. So, again, it's up to you. I mean, like, that's the final verdict. If you want to go spend your keys this week on Peni Parker, Sasquatch, and Gladiator, it's up to you. I'm not going to tell you to go get any of these cards. I don't think they're particularly a build around, except for maybe Gladiator. But you could do a mill deck without him, right? None of these cards are particularly deck necessary, and none of them are build around cards. If you get them, or you've got the resources, and you're like, oh, that's kind of, I'm wanting a merge style deck. I like, Kitty Pryde move deck, or I want to do a move bounce deck, and I'm looking for more cards to expand that. Peni Parker works in that situation well, and then of course Gladiator and Sasquatch and the things that I mentioned. So if you got the resources and you're intrigued by them, by all means, I think you'll be happy spending your resources. But if you're tighter on resources, or just trying to save and hoard resources for the amazing, what we seems to be amazing cards from the data mines, because there's some really, really good ones, absolutely a week that I think you could skip. So thanks for watching. As I'm experimenting with these videos, I'd appreciate it if you'd give me a like or a dislike to let me know which videos you like, as rude as that may sound. Or comments are even better, because you can get more nuance there. Additionally, if you would like to help me reach my goal by the end of the year of getting to 500 subscribers, we're 100 away and only like 2 weeks left. So if you're not subscribed, I'd really appreciate it. Tell me get to my goal of halfway to 1,000, which, is the beginning of a dream being fulfilled. So I appreciate every single one of you who are subscribed, and every single one of you who comment and watch the videos. If you're interested in Doom 2099, another video of a similar length coming out right after this. So look for that.